this time we're looking at inequalities that have negative exponents and stuff in it. They're not negative exponents, they're just negative variables. Here is what you must remember with inequalities. Let me give you an example and then we will talk about it. Negative 3x minus 10 is greater than 8. Negative 3x minus 10 is greater than 8. When you solve an inequality, this is what must be true. First of all, you solve it just like an equation. Solve it just like an equation. The only difference in this is that with an equation it doesn't matter what side the variable is on, but with an equality you must put the variable on the left side and you must make the variable positive. You must make the variable positive. I'll give you a chance to get that all written down. The variable has to be on the left side and it must be positive. Now, unfortunately, unlike with equations, there's a couple different rules that have to follow when you're talking about something being bigger or less than something here. And here's kind of what it looks like. First of all, if I'm solving this just like an equation, my goal is to get the letter x by itself, correct? Yes, Mr. Hahn, you're correct. So, if I'm given the choice here, I have minus 3x minus 10 is greater than 8, what's the first thing I do? Add 10, just like in an equation. The first thing I'm going to do is add 10. Add 10, I'm going to end up with a negative 3x is greater than 18. Okay? Now, in order to get the x by itself now, I need to get rid of the 3. So I'm going to do it in a couple steps, even though you could do it in one. I'm going to divide by 3. I divide this by 3, I'm left with a negative x is greater than, divide this by 3, 6. Stop me there if that didn't make sense. I just divided both sides by 3. Jackson.
Why did you divide?
Because that's the only way to separate them. This is multiplication, 3 times x. To get rid of the 3 in front of the x, you have to do the opposite, which is division, dividing by 3. See, if I subtract it, I have to subtract, or add it, I have to add the whole thing over there. The whole 3x has to go together. The only way to split up a number that's right next to a letter is to divide it out. John?
When you divided by
I'm getting there. Don't jump ahead of me. I did it one step at a time. Now, this is almost right except for the simple fact is I cannot have a negative variable. But the point I wanted to make to you is this. Okay, I can divide out a negative, which means I could divide this by negative 1, or like John said, I could have divided by a negative 3 there. That would have been perfectly okay. But the point I want you to realize is this. Anytime the variable, whether it has a number in front of it or not, changes signs, okay, I have to make it its opposite. I have to make the 6 over here its opposite. And I also have to make the sign, the inequality has become its opposite as well. Okay, so if I would have done like John said, and that's what I would normally do, but I wanted you to see this. If I would have divided this by a negative 3 and made this positive, okay, this would have become the negative 6, but then I had to also change that sign. If you divide or multiply by a negative, opposite, 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 all 3 of them have to change. Okay, not when you add or subtract. I can add or subtract negatives and stuff. Adding and subtracting doesn't change the sign, but when you multiply or divide by a negative, the sign has to change to its opposite too. So it has to be opposite. And then when you graph this, what's it look like? At negative 6, there's an open circle, and it goes to the smaller than sign. X is less than negative 6. Okay, I just wanted you to see at the end here, it's opposite, 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 rather than trying to do way too many steps at one time. Let's look at another one. This one's going to get slightly more complicated. I know you're very excited about that. How about this one? Negative 5 times x minus 3 is greater than 5 x times x minus 3y. Okay, first thing here I would have to do is get rid of the parentheses by doing what? Everybody's favorite property next to Boardwalk and Park Place would be, Nikki Carla, distributive property. Remember, if there's a minus in front of this 5, you have to distribute it out. Okay, the sign doesn't change, by the way, on this yet. I get negative 5x because negative 5 times x is negative 5x. A negative 5 times a negative 3 is a positive 15. Do the same thing over here. This 5 times both of those is 5x minus 15. Now what would you say? You need to get your x's on one side, your numbers on one side. My choice is I can either take this 5x over there, or I can take this one over here. Because I want my x's to be on the left, which one is probably the smartest idea, Jeremy Schwartz? Which one? Right side, left side? Move this one or that one? This one or that one? Yeah, I want to get rid of this one because I don't want my x's on the right side, so I do the opposite and I subtract. Subtracting doesn't change the sign. If I take a negative 5x and subtract another 5x, I'm left with negative 10x. Now I need to do what, Corinne Shellhammer? Right, subtract 15 to get it to the other side. Sign doesn't change when you add or subtract. That ends up being a negative 30. Now, what am I going to do? What's the only way to separate a number from the letter? I need x to be by itself. So Nick, I'm going to
change the signs.
Well, if you want to change the signs now, you can change the signs now, sure. I can make this a positive 10x, change the sign, make that a positive 30. And then I could divide by 10. Doesn't matter the order really you do it, as long as you remember to change that sign. X has to be less than 3. Maybe that's a better way to do it, I don't know. Oops. You're at 3, there needs to be the number there. Open circle, less than goes this way. Stop, ask questions there. You could have divided by negative 10 in one step. As long as you remembered, I changed this from negative to positive by dividing and multiplying. That sign should have changed. Divided by negative 3, you'll still get 3 there. Jackson.
But if there's 10x, how could I go on 30? Because I thought the whole number was an x, but it's going to a regular whole number.
I don't know what you're talking about. 10 goes into 30. 30 divided by 10
Like
is
it
3.
was 10x, and then
No, it wasn't. I left the x there. I just divided by the 10. The x stays there. That's why we divide it. When you divide it, you slice it off. Doesn't go with it. Lucas Espanol.
For graphing them, how do you know if the circle's supposed to be open or closed?
If this doesn't have an equal sign under it, it's always open. If it has an equal sign under it like that, then it's closed in. No equal sign, no colored in, equal sign, colored in. I can tell you're ready for one to try on your very own. How about this one? We've got one shot world here. Negative 2x plus 3. Negative 2x plus 3 is greater than or equal to a negative x minus 7. There you go. Do what you can. Let's see if we can't get the right answer here. How do you get rid of those parentheses? Just multiply through by a negative or a negative 1. I thought that would be negative 1. Just multiply everything by that. Same thing. You got an answer? Nick?
I got x squared is less than or equal to
I can
y.
tell you there will be no x squareds. And with Christ? Nothing? John?
I got x is greater than or equal to 1.3 here.
1.3? Really? Let me get something else. Jeremy?
I got x is less than or equal to
Any other buddy want to share an answer out there? Somebody must have something there. Shellhammer? Let's take a look. Your first step is simplify both sides, get rid of the parentheses. This side there's nothing to change, so it ends up being negative 2x plus 3. Multiply through by a negative or a negative 1, it's the same thing. You get negative x plus 7. Okay, move your x's to the left side, so I add x. I'm not multiplying, so it doesn't change the x squared or anything. Add x to this, please. I end up with a negative x plus 3 is greater than or equal to positive 7. Subtract the 3 over, subtract the 3 over, I get negative x greater than or equal to 4. Change the sign, change the sign, change the sign. So at negative 4, who asked me the question about circle Lucas, you would color in this one because it can be equal to 4, the negative 4, and it is less than, it goes this way. Again, stop me there and ask why, what happened, where, and when. Emma Price? I subtract 3 to move it over here. Subtract 3, I get nothing. Subtract 3, I get 4. Okay, I had a negative 2x, but I added this x because to go to the other side you add. That gives me a minus 1x, or just a minus x, and then change the sign, change the sign, change the sign. Jack,
My mind feels blank. I have no idea how to do this stuff.
you don't know how to do equations because it's the same thing. So if you don't know how to do equations, you probably better
Well, I don't know how to do this. It's crazy.
Not crazy, just exciting, new.
And very